Welcome back. It's now time for the newspaper review on the Firstline Morning Show here on TV Gold. And of course, this morning, seated by me is Hamza Suhuyini, a member of the NDC communication team. He's going to help us out with the newspapers. We await the presence of an NDC member, MPP member of the communication team. We await the presence of Philip Longdon in the studio in a short while. But for now, it is Hamza with me. And then the stories you're going to look at. Ghana's progress on course, of course. The Ghanaian Times carried on its front page that President Mahama, yesterday when he was addressing the UN Assembly, alluded to the fact that, the economy is actually on course. We'll get into that later on the show. And also, Alan destroying himself. Well, Kokubako is with the view that Alan Kojo Chiamanten is destroying himself. The big question is, why is he saying that? BNI, we've been told yesterday, arrested a Strage official. We'll also get into that. And then, you know, we need to be mindful of where we eat because of cholera outbreak. We've been told that some big restaurants we cherish, I mean, we spent some time there, they've been closed down. The big question is why. You might want to send us your thoughts ahead of the discussion. Our WhatsApp text line is 0545 038185. That is the number to send us a WhatsApp message on 0545 038185. I will activate the line as well, and then you join with your voice. Hamza, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And then welcome. How are you doing?
Well, we're good.
Yeah, good there.
Good.
Charlie, your African way there, don't go
Can't
there.
get sick KOD, your own KOD, so.
Oh.
From the
1957. All right. Very well. So we start off with the story on the page, page 17 of the Ghanaian Times. That's Ghana's progress still on course. Ghana's enviable tag as an emerging economy remains on course, despite the recent economic setback experienced by the country. Yesterday, at the 69th UN General Assembly meeting in New York, President John Dramani Mahama signaled a return of investor confidence in the prospect of the Ghanaian economy when he took a stand to address the August body. Well, Hamza, I believe by now you've been able to spend time to go through his speech. Generally, what do you make of it?
I think, first of all, I monitored the presentation from the beginning to the end. Indeed, a day before yesterday, we were made to understand that our own man, His Excellency the President, would be addressing the UN General Assembly, and we're all called on as citizens of this great nation to be part of the process by monitoring. I took time out of my busy schedule and indeed monitored His Excellency from the beginning of his presentation to the end. And I can tell you that His Excellency the President was in his usual best. Indeed, he ended up making all Ghanaians proud. And not just Ghanaians, I'm quite certain, but the world and the African continent as a whole. He came across as someone who had a better appreciation of global, regional, and local affairs.
Okay, but I want to hold on for me there with a better appreciation of global affairs. Now, the page 3 of the Daily Graphic also carried a very important story as well. We want to couple it with what the President said yesterday. And then he said that Accra as Ebola response hub. President defends decision at UN General Assembly. Now, President Mahama has defended his decision to use the capital city of Ghana, Accra, as the base for containment of the Ebola viral disease in the West African sub-region. Now, quote, he said, "We cannot afford to let fear keep us away. We cannot afford to let it compromise the very impulse that's not only define but retain our humanity. We must erase the stigma," unquote, he said, addressing the 69th General Assembly of the United Nations in New York yesterday. So, Hamza, you were on the floor that President indeed appreciated, and he was actually engrossed with the global affairs. I mean, couple it with what he said, I mean, with this story as well.
I think that, bottom line, like I said, His Excellency the President was at his usual best. And if you look at the entire speech, it went beyond the parameters of even Ghana. He, first of all, attempted an overview of the global dynamics where he called on the international community to intensify fights against terrorism and other acts of human abuse, where reference was made to the fact that even we have had so many of these things in the past, and some of them are repeating itself. But he was quick again to note, to caution that we should not see that as regression, but we should rather be challenged more to confront some of these challenges that seem to be affecting the international order. And for him, he was quite optimistic that the world was actually on course, though we still have skirmishes of some of these challenges somewhere, in some parts of the world. Again, he attempted an overview of the regional sector. And if I make reference to the regional sector, I'm directly referring to Africa as a whole, and most importantly, West Africa, where he made reference to the Ebola menace and the challenges we are faced with as a continent. And one thing that touched my senses actually had to do with his call on all of us, including the developed countries and countries that are not affected with this unfortunate disease, to be reminded about that innate impulse of the human race to be compassionate to one another, and the fact that Ebola is a trait to that innate impulse of us to be compassionate to one another in terms of difficulties and challenges. He reiterated the point that it is not only attacking that particular element of the human race, but equally raising another serious issue of isolation, where we are isolated from loved ones because of the fear of death and contraction of that particular disease, and called on the entire world to see that not as a Liberian problem or that of a Guinean problem or Sierra Leone problem, but a problem of the world. And it was based on that spirit of compassion that His Excellency the President reiterated the point that he has no regret or whatsoever for making Accra, and for that matter Ghana, a concentration hub in terms of training to confront that deadly disease, Ebola. So clearly, it is totally in sync with our orientation of being there for one another and being concerned, especially in the hills of the fact that Ghana, more or less, is an icon of progress. If you look at the entire African continent, and for that matter, we must always be seen to be leading the way in times of challenges like this. So clearly, His Excellency the President's call was in good taste, and indeed, I am hopeful that other governments, most importantly the developed countries, would do more in our collective interest to curb this Ebola menace. And one thing he also spoke about that was quite worrying had to do with the economic implication of that particular disease. I think he made reference to the banning of flights in some of these affected countries and its adverse effects on their economy. And if you notice, most of them just are still struggling to find their feet after years of war. Liberia, Sierra Leone, and even to a large extent, you know, the Liberian crisis and that of the Sierra Leone crisis had an impact on Guinea. So clearly, these are already countries suffering economically. And for them to be subjected to this unfair treatment due to no fault of theirs in the name of flight bans have serious economic consequences on their already distressed economy. So I think that it behoves on all of us, not just Ghana, not just Africa, but the entire world, to be conscious of the steps we need to adopt to ensure that we are able to nip in the bud this unfortunate ailment.
Okay.
But that, just a quick one. You see, it would be unfair for me to say that the Western partners or developed countries haven't contributed their quota. But what we are calling for is an intensification of that contribution. You understand? So that at the end of the day, it could be measured and its impact felt by all these citizens who are suffering from this unfortunate ailment. All right.
Well, we've been joined in the studios by the member of MPP Young Executive Forum, Philip Longdon. He's in the studio this morning as well. Welcome, sir. And how are you doing? Oh, we thank God for your life. Now, I mean, President's speech yesterday, he made a whole lot of, I mean, what people are saying it was an interesting presentation. I mean, to you, what do you make of it?
Well, good morning, and good morning to your viewers. First of all, I regret that I was not able to watch the President's speech. I was engaged in other matters.
Oh, okay.
I'm very sorry I didn't get the opportunity. But since then, monitoring the news, I've gotten snippets of what he said, and I've just heard from my friend here. So I get a sense of what the President said. For me, it is not surprising. This is what he has stood for, and this is what Ghana has stood for. We are playing a leadership role in ECOWAS, and you know, we're already aware that we're going to make this country a hub for resource mobilization for the supply of medical supplies in the affected areas. Recently, there was an announcement that the president himself was going to go to Liberia, you know, to visit them. So I think in terms of his own stand as president of Ghana, it is commendable, and the efforts that Ghana as a whole is playing in this general effort. The General Assembly, as it was addressed by many African leaders, including our president, brought out basically what the UN is for, where we all stand together and solve our common problems in dialogue and peace. That is what the UN stands for. Those who are better endowed in any area support those who are less endowed. And one person's problem is considered by another person as his problem as well. This Ebola virus that was discussed, another issue that was seriously discussed was the global warming problem. Now, President Obama too has also committed what he's going to do, sending about 3,000 troops to support, because it's not just a medical support that is needed, there's other support that the country needs, because their medical facilities have virtually broken down in all those three countries. And Cuba is sending doctors. Other countries are sending all kinds of supplies. So the whole world acknowledges that, yes, this problem isn't just a problem isolated to these three countries.
Okay.
But it's just a flight away, and it affects everybody else.
All right. So all in all, we all concede that, I mean, Ghana was shot into the limelight again yesterday with the presentation of the
I will not say that Ghana was shot into the limelight. I think Ghana is already in the limelight.
No, but then, I mean, yesterday it took us to a different level. Oh, you wouldn't agree to that? Because already,
you see,
Dr. Makuba, I want to come to Hamza. Dr. Makuba says that he's not really impressed. The president should have been very emotional concerning when he was talking about the Ebola virus and how the international community would be able to assist Sierra Leone, Liberia, and then Guinea. So he's not impressed. I mean,
I think that he even said the president should have been dramatic and emotional in communicating the challenges these countries face in terms of the Ebola virus. But you see, I do not expect, or even after the presentation of His Excellency the President, I really didn't expect an outright, if you like, praise singing for him. I knew that there were obviously some people who were going to have issues with some of the things His Excellency the President raised, whether for good or for bad reasons. It is purely in tandem with democratic governance and, if you like, freedom of appreciation and speech as well. But I seem to have serious concerns with that position. Indeed, like I said, I made time out of my busy schedule and I monitored His Excellency the President from beginning to the end. And I can tell you that His Excellency the President couldn't have said it any better than what he did yesterday. As for the said lecturer, it has been his stock in trade to see almost everything negative about what His Excellency the President or the NDC government does in power. So it is within his constitutional remit or mandate to do so as a citizen of this country. But I would respect his views anytime I feel that they carry weight and indeed would have direct impact as far as our goals as a nation is and aims as a nation is concerned. You see? But Parker, it will be unfair to say that what His Excellency the President did yesterday didn't add up to the color of Ghana. Indeed, it added. If you monitored even media discussions, the international media discussions after that speech, His Excellency's speech came for powerful scrutiny by independent media organizations outside the spectrum of Ghana. So that tells you, and he was not the only person who presented yesterday, that tells you the power of that particular presentation. And indeed, like I said, he couldn't have touched on everything, but as far as I am concerned, he did his best in responding to global dynamics, the regional dynamics, and most importantly, our domestic issues. Okay. So His Excellency was as usual best, and indeed that presentation added to the already existing color we have internationally. And I'm not sure that as a people would want a president who at any material time would try to more or less derate the gains that we have made as a people in terms of the international stage.
Right. So let me
was
come to you
coming
and then wrap up on this before we move on to other stories as well. The president yesterday admitted that despite our challenges, we are still on course. Do you have any reservations to that?
I don't have any reservations to that. I mean, the president says that he is in charge and he knows what he's talking about. At the end of the day, we would judge him based on what we see. But allow me to comment on a few comments I have made.
All right.
I think I made it very clear that the leadership that the president is giving with regards to this Ebola crisis and all that is commendable. Let us not try and get ourselves into a situation where when people criticize or people from a different political disposition make comments, it's as if to say they don't want to appreciate anything good that is happening. Yes, if somebody thought that the president should have been a bit more dramatic, that is his view, like he said, and that person is entitled to it. I don't think we should...
But the big question is, should he have even expressed that opinion?
Why
the
not,
president being dramatic.
It is within his...
President Obama,
It is within his right.
whatever he does, they pick him with a toothpick. What is wrong? Let us come to terms with that. If I criticize you, it doesn't mean I'm against you. Sometimes the criticism is good for you. And let us live with that. It is democracy. It is what we've opted for, and we must all accept it. Let us not... You see, there are some people who are too sensitive. The moment you raise any form of criticism, or you do not appear to be singing praises, then you are the enemy and you must be attacked, and you must be gone at. It is a very negative way of doing our politics. And it is always good for the man in the seat to hear the alternate view, because there's a tendency, naturally and worldwide, for people to want to praise sing people with authority, and they lose direction. So the president has demonstrated leadership. And what was also very key about his speech there was that the leaders of these three affected countries could not make it to the conference. So the world stage was looking for more or less their spokesperson who is going to talk for them, who is authoritative enough to speak on their behalf. And President Mahama did that. I mean, I think it was a credit to the whole sub-region.
Okay.
And he did well. If somebody feels he should have gone a little bit better.
By willing and garnishing.
He didn't suggest that he should win or garnish his teeth. He did not suggest that.
Well,
let us be fair.
We are moving on to a different subject.
No, but Parker, just a quick
Yeah,
one.
okay,
In as much as it is within the right of people to criticize leaders or whatsoever, indeed, the point also must be made that it is within the right of others to subject these criticisms
Oh, definitely.
to the test mechanism.
Sure.
And
that is
when
fair.
that is done, it is purely not in bad taste, but also in a way to enhance democratic governance and to perfect the system.
Okay.
And if we conclude, if after such an assessment, someone is deeply convinced that it is a trend of criticism without basis, based on his subjection to that particular prism of assessment, I think that it is within that person's right as well to pass that judgment. And when that judgment is passed, it does not in any way mean that one is trying to belittle, or if you like, downgrade the relevance of such criticism that at the end of the day actually is intended to perfect the system. And we must begin to see things from that perspective as well.
Thank you for your preposition on the story. Now, we're moving on to what the Daily Dispatch carried on its front page, that Alan Kojo Chemantin destroying himself. With that view. And also, the informer said that the MPP October 18 flag bearership contest, Alan will need a miracle to beat Akufo Addo. Now, let me deal with the Daily Dispatch and I'll come to the informer. Now, the story says, Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Kwaku Bako Jr. has dismissed claims that Nana Akufo-Addo, one of the presidential aspirants of the new Patriotic Party, has been dishing out cash to members of the party. Wednesday Daily Guide edition indicated that a member of Alan Chemantin's campaign team has accused Nana Akufo-Addo of inducing their camp members with money in order to win their votes during the primaries on October 18. Alan boys have been declaring support for the candidature of Nana Akufo-Addo in droves, but Mr. Chemantin said the desertion was motivated by many inducements. All right, so that was what the Daily Dispatch carried. Now, with the Informer, the story I am told it's going to be on the page. Okay, yeah, the page 6 of it. Now, Allah will need a miracle to beat Akufo-Addo. A leading Pan-African magazine suggests that Mr. John Allen Kojo Chairman, who will also be contesting the October 18th election of the flag bearer of the Opposition Patriotic Party, NPP, will need a miracle to beat the front-runner, Mr. Adedankwa Akufo-Addo. Philip, do you think Alan definitely deserves a miracle to beat Akufo?
I don't think so. But before I go into that, let me first address what Kweku Baku said.
Okay.
Kweku Baku was making reference to a story that appeared in the Ghanaian
the Times a couple of days ago.
Daily Guide.
Daily Guide.
A few days before.
Yeah, Guide edition.
The story said Alan has accused Nana Akufo-Addo of luring his supporters with money, more or less buying his supporters. The Daily Dispatch has referred to Kweku Baku by saying that Nana Akufo-Addo is doling out cash to entice his supporters. Now, the original story was taken out of a comment I made in response to an interview.
Oh, you made the comment?
Yes, I made the interview. I made that comment. And I have described it as gangster journalism. There was a story on, that was an interview in response to a previous story, that certain persons who I know very well had defected or more or less lent their support from Alan onto Nana Addo. And I said these people who have supported Nana Addo have supported Nana Addo for quite some time now. Yes, they used to be strong Alan Chairman supporters. Now they support Nana Addo. But this is not something that has just happened. This is an old story. So this is just propaganda. Nana is trying to lure Alan supporters. So as for that one, it will happen. In politics, people change sides from time to time. So this is no news. Then the reporter asked me, is he using money? I said, as for money, we saw it at our superdelegates election, where people were actually given money, go and vote, show your vote, and come and collect money. That was where money came in, and that was my only reference to money. I didn't say Nana Addo is using money to entice Alan supporters, or he's doling out cash. I never said that. And I have said it several times, but some papers choose. And I'm looking forward to very soon, probably hopefully later today, deal with this matter with Kweku Baku himself. Because I heard him, or I have heard reports of what he also said on another radio station.
Okay.
So I am looking forward to addressing he himself on this matter.
So he states an authority that he never said.
I never said, and I say it here, and I've said it on so many other radio stations, that I never said Nana Akufo-Addo is doling out cash to entice Alan supporters. I made reference to money being used to get people to vote in a particular way during our primaries. I made also reference to break or disregard of our election processes during the superdelegates election, where the rules were very clear. Do not have candidates' paraphernalia at the voting center. Yet we had posters as big as this of one candidate at the voting center. People had been buzzed with the candidate's T-shirt. The regulation says have only 2 reps there. Hundreds of people buzzed there, dancing and singing. I challenged somebody. He said, oh, they are 50 yards away from the polling booth. I said, my friend. And you see hefty men standing there. If it was NDC that did this at national elections, we and people would take to the streets. So why should we do this in our own election? Okay, that has passed. I don't have a problem with that. Based on that, somebody has got 80%. Fine. It's our own internal affair. If we have chosen to ignore that and deal with it internally, that's our matter. But my reference to money was to do with the election, not that Nana Addo is using money to entice Alan's supporters. No way.
But according to some of the stories, Alan has confirmed that.
No, but Alan has confirmed.
Yes.
Yes, Alan has confirmed about the paying for the election. And also the people who have been enticed to do press conferences to come in. It's like, you see, I don't want to bring out some of the things that are going on in my party. You see, because
at least for your supporters. I mean, your acolytes would want to know exactly what's happening within the party.
It is true. You see, it is true that people want to know what's happening in the party. but I will not come and stand here on your platform. I won't give you that pleasure. It is Mami Fiasem. I will deal with it internally. Because at the end of the day...
But it's hurting the party anyway.
Oh, yes, I agree. I am a Democrat. And I will fight for democracy. The fact that I'm supporting Alan and fighting Nana Akufo-Addo's campaign in support of Alan doesn't mean I have anything against Nana Akufo-Addo as a person. Okay. Or all those people who are supporting him.
All right. Now, the story is saying that Alan will need a miracle to beat Akufo-Addo.
That is somebody's view, and he's entitled to that view.
I mean, it's
look,
it's
Alan,
clear. As we are speaking,
Alan is in the northern regions. He is going from constituency to constituency, meeting the delegates. And at these sessions, many of which have been present, right? I didn't go with them to the north, I'm here. But many of the other programs, I was present. And people get up and ask Alan questions and say, but weren't you the one who they said you did not support the party? Weren't you the one they said this? And when Alan explains, they say, oh, is that right? So this is true. They say, but your PSIs failed. Did they fail? And he gives you the statistics. How it has succeeded, even the limited successes. How ISU Starch Factory is producing so much starch. Nestle and Guinness are, you are go and find out from the ministry. They are fighting to take it over, to be able to expand it. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, there are so many things that were done. Our regret is that maybe if we had the same type of push on those initiatives, we would have had more than 100,000 hectares of oil palm under cultivation. What in Cote d'Ivoire? You see the oil palm that they are exporting. I mean, how much do we make from cocoa in a year? If we had maintained the momentum, our receipts from oil palm would have equaled cocoa by now. And can you imagine the difference to our economy? Having that extra revenue coming in, the level of the CD by this time. So when Alan explains all these things to them, the people know, they see what is good, and they appreciate him. You understand what I'm saying? There has been a lot of negative propaganda. And there are a lot of people sitting like here feeding on these propagandas and wishing that Alan will need a miracle. I want to assure them that Alan is doing a rigorous campaign. He is going from constituency to constituency, dealing with the delegates. Mind you, we have almost 150,000 people who are going to vote.
All right.
Some people use all their energies and time to make an impression of 781 and get a high vote. And based on that, say, oh, I'm so popular in the party, so therefore, everybody should vote for me. You can see at the election.
Hamza, you've heard from the horse's own mouth. I just don't want to say anything. I mean, your thoughts on that? Quickly.
Quite honestly, I would have, I think for the first time, let me betray His Excellency President Mills's, the late president's, policy of do Fiasem. Expanding the frontiers of that policy actually would mean that I am still part of the NPP fraternity because it's an entity within the bigger family Ghana. And I guess I am blessed with that kind of opportunity to attempt an analysis of their internal issues. But you see, let me make one strong point. Whether it is Nana Akufo-Addo, Alan Kojo Chirmanten, or whoever, Adanimo, the new Patriotic Party brings for the 2016 elections. I am pretty much convinced that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and the National Democratic Congress would once again win the election convincingly. And you see, I also know, and I can feel it, that indeed the NPP would be better off with a different candidate, and definitely not Nana Akufo-Addo. But having said that, what I cannot...
But Nana is a threat to JDM?
Not at all, not at all. You see, if you look at the trend, it's scary. His percentage for 2008, after the runoff, percentage for 2012, there seemed to be a decline, even using the national statistics. You see, what I cannot tell is whether the replacement would be Adanimo or Alan Kojo Chirmanten. But obviously, to be fair to any political analysis, I think that the NPP needs a different face to make our elections quite competitive.
Okay.
Having said that, in Philip London's analysis, it exposes one usual character of politicians, an attempt to be evasive when confronted with the realities.
Of politicians?
Yes, most politicians.
Ah,
I must be fair. I must
maybe
be
I'm
honest.
not one of those most.
Most politicians. You see, first of all, everybody in Ghana knows we, NPP, went to that conference with two important personalities. Alan Kojo Chimanten.
Which conference?
The super
The
delegate.
super delegate conference.
Okay.
Alan Kojo Chimanten and Nanado as the topmost, if you like, the rated candidates as far as your contest is concerned. Indeed,
They were the foreigners.
we also know that there seemed to be that intense rivalry between the two candidates. And you throw mud at each other at the least provocation. So if you are confronted on a radio interview and you make statements to the effect that indeed there are concerns of vote buying as far as that superdelegate conference is concerned, when the prelude to the interview hinged entirely on Nanado as a person and his demeanor and that of his supporters during that entire process, and you were asked a direct question as to whether Nanado influenced it or not, and you said yes, as for that one, people influence with money. And you would notice that even in his submission, the tail end, he indicated that one candidate's poster was everywhere. We all know who he's talking about.
Yes, Nana Akufo-Addo.
So if you gave a broader interview, that gave leads. And based on analysis, people can make reasonable projections and conclusions out of that your interview. I think that you shouldn't be that ruffled. Indeed, in tandem with your desire to be truthful to the people of Ghana, I don't see any difficulty that you should have in communicating to us that this particular candidate influenced the elections with money. Like you accused His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and the National Democratic Congress during the 2012 elections. Based on that same principle of fairness and commitment to the Republic of Ghana, you should be bold enough to expose such candidates. After all, you are contesting them. So I don't see the difficulty in trying to now delink yourself from that indirect admission that Nanado and his faction influenced the elections in ways that you people don't subscribe.
Okay, Hamza, just hold on for me.
that-
We'll turn back to continue with the discussion. Going for a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Breakfast